All right, everyone, going to be jumping into the NFL DFS showdown slate between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Buffalo Bills. Now, as always, I do like to start out with the game preview for that one. We are seeing that the Buffalo Bills are going to be 8.5-point favorites, and some people might be coming in and having a little bit of sticker shock to that. To me, that's not the case. I feel like that's correct. And the reason being, we are seeing the Bucs are a little bit banged up for one, and I'll touch on that here. Baker Mayfield, questionable with a knee injury. That's obviously not great, but you also have Chris Godwin, questionable with a neck injury. Really not great. That's kind of a concern as well. They're kind of downplaying it, but at the same time, that's an issue. The thing with the Bills, though, they are really banged up, especially defensively. We're starting to see that really start to add up. The Patriots were able to get pushed. The line for the Patriots really looks the best that they had that season thus far. And then we look at offensively, Dawson Knox was out, and I actually think that could be one of the bigger injury items for DFS, and I'll touch on that in this video. But also Quinton Morris is out as well. So to me, that might lead to Dalton Kincaid just being forced to play more of a traditional tight end role. Now, I expect them to probably bring someone up because I don't know if they have anyone on the active roster just yet, tight end wise. So we'll see about that. But yeah, they're pretty banged up defensively. So it's weird. Can Baker Mayfield actually play well enough against this poor defense? Mac Jones just played well. And is it a bad take to say those two are probably the same quarterback? Baker might have a little bit more experience, so he's not going to make as many stupid plays, but they kind of feel like the same quarterback, Mac Jones and Baker Mayfield. So it's not like you can't have a good day against Buffalo. And so looking at this, I do want to start out with Tampa Bay. And I'll begin into Buffalo. I feel like there's a little bit more to touch on for Buffalo, so I want to spend more time there. And for what it's worth, guys, last week, 2 for 3, pretty sweat-free for 2 of the games. For the last Thursday night game, just missed out on cash and actually finished in the top 52% actually. So finished 50% better than everyone and actually ended up cashing in a GPP rather than in cash. It was a strange night where, that happens sometimes. It's just weird when that occurs. So I felt like, last week, really solid for the showdown slates. We'll see if we can do that again. Starting with the Bucs though. Mike Evans is really priced up, especially with the captain's price. It does almost feel like he's going to have a big game though. Baker is just really zoning in on him. And yes, Baker has really struggled to hit some deep balls, really overthrowing a bunch of players. Trey Palmer should have had some much bigger plays than he's had recently. And he's priced up on this slate, which sucks because of the Chris Godwin news. But his stats should be a little bit better. Baker should be better because he had a bad game 2 games ago. Threw the ball 42 times last week. I don't think that's a winning formula for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At the same time, I just don't think Baker Mayfield's a winning formula for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I feel like with Baker, the hype has kind of juiced up his perception. This win against Minnesota where, let's face it, Minnesota should have won that game against Chicago. We're seeing that's just a bad team. Well, that was before Tyson Bagent. Philly, obviously, they lost to them. New Orleans, not that good of a team. Detroit lost to them. And then Atlanta, they're kind of the same caliber of talent as the Bucs, but that doesn't really matter. What matters is, will Baker get you 15 or so DraftKings points? Probably, but his best game was 24 DraftKings points, and I just don't see that occurring this week on a short week, and so I'm worried. I'm worried about Baker. Now, don't get me wrong. The plays have been there for him to have bigger games. He's just missed them. Rashad White has been super interesting, I would say. Take Alexander Madison, and that's Rashad White, especially production-wise. It's a running back that can take advantage of a easy matchup. A difficult matchup's not going to do much against. If the plays are there, if the holes are there, if the catch is there, he's going to make the play. Not going to do too much more. He has been someone, though, kind of each week, I feel like has been a little bit more impressive. He's someone that, at the beginning of the season, I kind of wrote off. Had a good game against Chicago, but, that was really it. I do think, though, as the season progressed, he has looked better. He's been falling forward. Looks a little bit quicker as well. I just don't love the price tag. And I will say, Chris Godwin would probably just be the lock for this team if we get news that he's active and 100%. Now, I am worried about that neck injury. That can be a big thing, a serious thing as well. But he has been super consistent, right? There's just no way to avoid Chris Godwin, I would say, if we get news that he's ready to go. And you just imagine, too, it's a short week. He was a non-participant in their first practice, now a limited participant on Tuesday. Monday isn't even an official practice report, so who knows? It's just a projected practice report. So he feels like the go-to play. I did mention Trey Palmer. He's someone that's playing a lot more. They're playing him in 3 receiver sets, and I really love the talent for Trey Palmer. He's someone DFS-wise does make sense. We have seen him almost have some big plays, especially against Detroit, where Baker missed him twice. He's actually made Baker his stats look a little bit better with some pretty nice end zone catches thus far this season. If Chris Godwin is banged up, Trey Palmer is going to go off. And honestly, if Chris Godwin's out, I actually don't mind Trey Palmer in the captain spot then, because I just kind of sort of think he's going to take over for that role. But because of that injury news, we're not getting Palmer at a good price tag. And for that matter, we're not even getting Devin Tompkins at a good price tag. Now, the nice thing about him is that they have clearly been trying to design plays to go to him. They like his talent. He's kind of a quick twitch guy, a smaller guy, but he's a playmaker, obviously. So at 1.6, we know he's most likely going to get involved. We know he's most likely not going to give us a dud. And he has been close to in some big plays as well. I talked about Baker missing some plays against Detroit. Tompkins almost had a big play there as well. I just like the fact that they are getting him more involved in the offense and designing plays to him. At 1.6, I wish it was a little bit cheaper. Like if this was 800 and we're betting on him getting 2 DraftKings points, I would just be all for that. And this isn't exactly a slate where I feel like we need to do studs and duds, but he does feel like a good discounted price tag. Keyshawn Vaughn has been getting work, but he hasn't been doing much with it. Now, I will say it doesn't really seem like there has been much there for him on those plays. Chase Edmonds was activated from the IR. We're not noting that. I mean, it's noteworthy, I guess, but we're not worried about that, I think, for this game. Cade Otton playing a lot of snaps. Could he catch a touchdown? Sure. Is he at cheap price tag? Sure. I just don't know if we really want to go in on that. The Bucs defense, it's very interesting because Josh Allen very much prone to mistakes. Could he throw a pick six? Are the Bucs maybe going to get a couple of sacks in this game? Probably. Maybe not the pick six, but the sacks, probably. Maybe a fumble or an interception, probably. Are they going to finish 2x this? Probably, but is that enough? I don't think so. So now let's go ahead and move on to the Buffalo Bills. I feel like this is the biggest game theory stuff that we have going on here in terms of expectations for the Bills offense. And what I mean by that is with the news that Dawson Knox is out, that's going to leave them without Quentin Morris as well, who's the third stringer. They're already without their fourth string tight end. So I'm curious if they're going to bring someone up. And with that being said, I don't know, is Kincaid going to have to be more of a tight end in this game? Do they trust him to be more of a tight end in this game? And that's, to me, where I actually could see someone like Khalil Shakir be more involved this week, operating out as more of the Dalton Kincaid role, because Kincaid is going to have to slot over into more of a traditional tight end role, taking over for Knox and Morris. That is kind of a thought that I like for this game. Now, do we know for sure that's going to be Shakir? Probably not, but it does seem like Trent Sherfield is more of an afterthought for them now. Some of that did get a lot of hype, but it doesn't seem like that's going to come to fruition to anything. Deontay Hardy is someone that they do try to get the football to. Take what I said about Devin Tompkins, and that's also applied to Deontay Hardy. Now, Tompkins, I think, has a little bit more upside just because he's playing a little bit more, but both players we could see play and have a good game between those two. So decent value flyers for Tompkins and Hardy, but nothing that we need to go crazy with. And then that kind of feels like it, honestly. We're probably playing maybe Shakir. I think that's a good kind of thought process play for the pass catchers for the replacement for Dawson Knox. Now, I will say Kincaid is at a cheap price. I think a lot of people are going to be playing him, and they probably should. I still think he's going to be involved in the offense. I still think he has a good chance to be in a cash lineup. I'm probably playing him at that price tag. But then from there, where do we go? Honestly, given the fact that they are 8.5-point favorites, I'm playing Josh Allen. He has struggled. He's at times looked bad, but the upside to really just go off for 40s there. I think we easily want to play him. And then Diggs as well. We know most likely going to have a big game in this game. I mentioned in the props video, him kind of having a dud, and I say dud because he still scored, at 6 receptions. For any other receiver, it's a great game as well. But that's coming off of 4 straight 100-yard games, and that's kind of where I'm like, okay, it makes sense why he didn't have the best game, because there has to be some sort of regression in there. So he's probably my favorite candidate for a captain spot, just given the likelihood of him going off. Now, if we do that, we can't fit in James Cook, who I might be fine with that, but James Cook has looked good. The issue that I have with James Cook is he is splitting snaps with him and Latavius Murray. And I know James Cook was much more involved, looked really good. He's getting about, at least 14 or so opportunities per game, which we love. Does feel like he's at sort of a cheap price tag as well. But if we're choosing between him and, let's say, trying to pay up for Mike Evans, I'd probably rather pay up for Mike Evans. Rashad White, I expect to have a decent game and being used in the passing game. I'd probably rather go with White, especially playing 70 to 80% of the snaps compared to James Cook, who's seemingly maxed out at 60% of the snaps. And then at the same time, I think I'd be rather more appealed to go to Latavius Murray, who I would say has a decent chance to score a touchdown, especially if they are grinding out the game clock at the end of the game. Maybe you can get a touchdown in that sense. And he's actually the one that saw the bigger boost with Damian Harris out. All those snaps just went to Murray. James Cook snaps and change it all. And for what's worth, Gabe Davis, just a flyer play. Like, he can have big games, he can have bad games. I know not much analysis there. It's just with him, you never know exactly when it's going to happen. He had 4 straight games of touchdowns, and then when he doesn't score a touchdown, just a complete dud. Sure, risk reward. This is kind of like the George Kittle rule. By now, a lot of you guys probably know this, where I kind of said last week it didn't exactly apply for him with Deebo Samuel out, but with George Kittle, we have seen the inconsistency where it's like if you're playing him, you're kind of just playing him in the captain spot, hoping for that random big game. It's kind of how I feel about Gabe Davis. So for this video, where I'm always trying to make the best build possible for you guys, not doing that. So here's kind of a strange build, I will say. Like, this is me somewhat betting on the Bills being up and that being a result of Diggs and Allen going off. So I kind of wanted to choose between Allen or Diggs in the captain spot. Went with Diggs here. Then I paid down for Deontay Hardy. I don't love that. I probably would have rather got to Tompkins for the Bucs, but all in all, I'm fine with it. I do think Chris Godwin is probably the safest cheap play, assuming he's healthy. That being said, if he is not healthy, Trey Palmer would actually make as a decent captain's play. Trey Palmer is playing a bunch of snaps. Given the negative game script that the Bucs are most likely going to be playing in, then I actually don't mind the idea of someone like Trey Palmer. He's looked good, made Baker Mayfield look good at times as well. I don't mind him as a play. And then Rashad White, kind of just a line of filler. You know, I do think he has a good chance to be involved in the passing game. And I'm just thinking about it. Like, yeah, he is. I don't want to say he's Rhamondre Stevenson or Zeke. I don't think he has looked as good as those guys, but kind of that same style runner, bigger back, kind of a bruiser back. And the Bills are still going to be kind of hurting defensively. And so the Bucs are going to see that film of how to beat them, and they're going to go about doing the same stuff. And so White should at least be able to do some of that work. And if he's playing 80% of the snaps, does feel like a safe play as well. But that's going to be all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell as well. Comment your guys' favorite play if you have one. But that's going to be all for this video. Thanks for watching, guys. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.